calls it a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk the ball. Chris Taylor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into a Thursday night DodgerHeads live. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Matt Moreno. Matt, I've already got I'm one up on you on our opening day roster predictions because today the good news was announced that James Outman was going to be making the Dodgers opening day roster. That's where we're going to start the show. We'll get to the ripple effects of this move as well as some bullpen decisions looming. But the news today is that rookie prospect James Outman, who of course made his debut last season, was incredible for a few days, got sent back down, was on many people's radars as an outsider looking in for opening day roster. Today, he gets the good news. I get the good news. My guy is on opening day roster, and I think this is a good thing for the Dodgers.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I guess I'm surprised, and if people were with us on Sunday night, I didn't see James Outman making the opening day roster, mainly because I felt like the Dodgers weren't necessarily going to play him on an everyday basis, whereas with Oklahoma City, he could get that. But
yeah,
not only is he going to be on the opening day roster, but Dave Roberts said he's going to play plenty, which it makes sense if you're going to do it that way. And in terms of my predictions, I think I had Yoni making the roster as well, and he got sent down to minor league camp the other day. So I'm off to a bad start, but it's a long year ahead. I can only go up from here. But circling back to James Outman, it makes sense. I mean, he cooled a little bit. I mean, he had a double today against the Diamondbacks. The Dodgers got plastered after a good first inning. But what he brings is obviously the upside. And Dave Roberts, I think, had a quote something effective. He's young or old, like he is basically one of our better players on the team in the organization. So, of course, they're going to keep him on the roster.
Yeah, Dave Roberts' quote to what you were saying, I want to leave it broad, but for him to be on our major league roster and not play doesn't make any sense at all. So with that, he's going to play a good bit. And look, the conversation, to be fair to Outman, about whether or not he would make the opening day roster was never, is he one of the best 13 players that they have? It was a question of, are they really going to put him on the major league roster and not play him every day? Because the assumption was Trace Thompson or Jason Hayward or Chris Taylor, one of these guys would play more than him. It was never really a reflection of, was he good enough? And so good on the Dodgers for doing kind of what I've been advocating for, which is screw the egos of all the guys in the outfield. James Outman is one of your three best outfielders clearly throughout spring. And so for them to give him a spot, I think is the right decision here, and one that I'm really excited about, to be perfectly honest. I do want to mention real quick, you gave Blake crap for pounding the table for Yoni, and then he struggled. You pounded the table for Yoni, and then the guy gets cut the next day, option to minor league camp. So I'm just saying, like, maybe we just cool it on saying anything nice about the guy, because I don't know what's next. He's going to be like released from the organization if we say anything nice about the guy.
Yeah, I know. We're going to have to put out a statement from the website apologizing to Yoni for his swing kind of tailing off and then getting sent down to minor league camp after I said I think he'll end up making the roster.
Well, let's talk Outman, because I see some of the comments in the chat. Some people excited, some people nervous. I have seen some folks saying, hey, he hasn't been that good. Like, he started out well, but maybe he's cooled off. I would actually push back against, I think he had a small negative stretch. He had a 4-day stretch, March 16, 17, 18, 19, where he was 0 for 11. Aside from that stretch, he's reached in 9 of the other 11 games he's played in the month of March. You mentioned he's 4 for his last 10 with a pair of doubles. He finishes, excuse me, I shouldn't say he finishes, but as of recording this, his spring training slash line 308, a 391 on base, a 590 slugging percentage. So we're talking about a 980 OPS. He's got 6 extra base hits to go along with it. I know the strikeout rate isn't great, but we kind of knew that was Outman's deal. This is a guy who's going to give you, you're hoping for like a 250 batting average. He's going to strike out a lot, but if he gives you 15 to 20 home runs, which clearly he seems capable of doing, he's also combining that with the plus outfield. And so often when we look at guys like Outman, we're only looking at the offensive stats. It cannot be underestimated how good this guy is defensively. And so I get, yes, he's cooled off a little bit, but he followed that 4-game stretch up by going 4 for his last 10 with a pair of doubles. And so to me, that's a positive sign of a guy who didn't let the 0 for 10 get to his head.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it is only spring training, but it's nice to see him, kind of bounce back after the rough stretch that you highlighted. And frankly, the other guys that he was competing with in the outfield kind of endured similar struggles. I mean, even Hayward,
worse.
Hayward's been a lock for the opening day roster for much longer than Outman was. And Dave Roberts, in announcing that Outman would make it, said he did confirm that Hayward would as well. But like I said, like that had already, I think he already called him, the quote was like a safe bet.
Yeah.
But yeah, Outman's defensive skill and capabilities can't be overlooked. And I think that's going to be important. We saw the Dodgers clearly value defense out there with Cody Bellinger, and it's something that I believed in as well. I know he struggled at the plate, but I thought when you look at the other options, at least you're getting plus defense from Bellinger in center field. Now with Outman, I mean, I think we can't write his offensive struggles in spring training off and say, he's going to not hit during the regular season. But if he does struggle a little bit, he will give you that quality defense in center field. And frankly, if you look across the board, like the Dodgers don't have a lot of other options that would make clear cut, kind of sense to put ahead of him.
What's so weird about the Dodgers outfield, Matt, when I look at it, is the fact that they have a bunch of guys whose names are written in pen, like certainties. Like, well, of course, Chris Taylor is going to be out there. Like you said, Jason Hayward early on. We need Trace Thompson. And then it was just a matter of, so it feels like, hey, they've got 5 guys that are name brands that we knew were going to be on the roster. So it gives you this sense of you feel okay about that group. And yet when you look at the actual performance of the group, it's mixed. On one hand, Mookie Betts, you feel great about that. David Peralta has hit the ball a lot better, so maybe you feel a little bit better about that. And as I said, James Outman has a 980 OPS and is hitting the ball hard every time it hits his bat. The flip side is a couple of those other guys we mentioned. I'm not going to pile on to Chris Taylor. We've been talking about him a lot, but Jason Hayward hit 200 this spring. I will say that average dipped as low as 172, has had a few hits, 4 hits in his last 5 or 6 games. So maybe, things aren't trending up at the steep angle that we would like them to, but they are trending up. But Trace Thompson is the guy that is concerning to me. 27 at bats, 074 is what he ended up hitting. I can't remember where I had his. Oh, and that in addition to a 3 for 14 at the World Baseball Classic. So we're talking about a guy that has struggled in every facet so far this season, this spring training. And that brings me to not something I'm predicting is going to happen right now, but something I just want to throw out there. All right, Matt, you look at the Dodgers roster. You've got Mookie Betts. You've got David Peralta. Now you've got Outman. You've got Hayward. You've got Trace Thompson. That's 5 outfielders. And a lot of those guys are pretty redundant. Hayward's a left-hander. Outman is a left-hander. Trace Thompson's a right-hander, but had reverse splits. I don't think the Dodgers are going to... Oh, and Chris Taylor, who we haven't even mentioned here. So realistically, so what's that? 5 outfielders plus Chris Taylor, who's probably going to be playing some majority of his time in the outfield. That doesn't feel like a sustainable group. And so, again, because Yoni Hernandez got sent down, I'm not expecting him to make the roster as a utility infielder. But I guess I'm just throwing out there the way that this spring has gone, looking at the big picture of his career, not just last season. I wouldn't be 10 out of 10 surprised if a guy like Trace Thompson a month from now ends up getting traded, ends up getting DFA'd. The larger sample size of his career is in line with what we've seen this spring, and that's not really great. The reverse splits don't add up for him as creating a spot for himself in the outfield. So again, I'm not saying he's going to get DFA'd between now and opening day because they probably don't have a better option right now. I'm just saying as a surprise move to maybe just keep on the radar, I wouldn't be shocked based on what we've seen this spring.
Yeah, that would probably surprise me. Maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, I would still probably put that at like a 7 or an 8.
Okay.
Just because I don't know if the Dodgers would, kind of give up that early. Maybe if you said at some point this season, later in the year, if he still struggled, then fine, I could potentially see that. But I think they believe in Trace. I think they like what Trace brings defensively. And I mean, I get what you're saying in terms of, kind of looking at his career picture and start struggling this spring. But I'll push back a little bit and say his first stint with the Dodgers, he played well before his back injury. Yeah. And so I guess now the question is, can he get back to that just physically? And I think he probably can, but I guess I don't know for certain. And, if he, I think though, what you are correct about is if he doesn't hit left-handed pitching, he's going to be in trouble, I think, for playing time because Peralta is starting against righties.
Yeah.
Maybe even Jason Hayward, if it depending on, how productive Trace is being. And so he could sort of end up being an odd man out at some point. And then, I guess that does then lead a little bit of credence to your, theory, but I still would be surprised if it happened that early.
Yeah. And another name that I think THP threw out there is Bradley Zimmer, a guy who is a right-handed hitter. And, he's hitting 276 this spring. Take what you want with that. This is a guy who
Zimmer's a lefty. Isn't he? Aren't Zimmer and
right.
Duggar? Zimmer and Duggar are both lefties.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at his throwing. So never mind.
Yeah.
Ignore everything I was just about to say. Just the guy who bats left and throws right. That just doesn't make any sense to me. But what are you going to do? But so I'll be curious. The Trace Thompson one is just something to monitor here. Keep your finger on the pulse, because like you said, a lot of people think Chris Taylor, David Peralta is a platoon that makes some sense. If James Outman is going to play a lot as a left-handed hitter in center field, there isn't a right-hander besides Trace to platoon with. But again, Trace was worse against lefties. And to Dave Roberts' quote, do you interpret what Dave Roberts said as James Outman's going to hit against lefties too? Do you see him playing 4 out of every 5 days?
Yeah, that's definitely how I took it. And I guess we'll have to wait and see if that's how it unfolds. But again, if he's not, then I don't know what sense does it make to have him up, right? The Dodgers, one thing that, it's how do you kind of weigh it? On one hand, the player needs to prove that they can hit same side pitching, right? On the other hand, if you're not necessarily always giving them those opportunities, how can they prove it, right? So what comes, does chicken or the egg come first? I think that they'll at least give Outman opportunities early on, whether it's a righty or a left-hander on the mound, to start and see what he can do. And, if he does well, then there's your answer. And if not, then I think they'll kind of pivot and figure out what they do. But again, the majority of their outfield is left-handed hitting. And then one of your right-handed hitters didn't hit lefties at all last year. So,
yeah,
that's an issue. And then, if you want to go even further, Chris Taylor is just struggling kind of in general. And so where does he sort of fit in with also needing to give Miguel Rojas time off at shortstop? And so it'll be interesting. The Dodgers definitely have versatility that they love, but the quality of it, I would question.
Well, and here's another thing. If they've got a righty on the mound, I'm not saying this is going to happen all the time, but is there a world where Miguel Vargas, a right-handed hitter, maybe takes a seat, Mookie Betts moves into second base, and you get a couple of these lefties, Jason Hayward and James Outman, both starting in the outfield? Again, I think Miguel Vargas is going to play basically every single day, but I could see a scenario where against righties, maybe that's when they choose to give Vargas the day off to get a couple lefties in the outfield.
Yeah, I could see that on occasion. Vargas, yeah, it'll break out that way. I don't know if it'll be a hard and fast rule. I'm sure we all remember the 2018 World Series against the Red Sox, where if it was a lefty on the mound, you could pretty much put in pen what the starting lineup was going to be, and when it was a righty, you could do the same thing. Where the Dodgers had strict platoons, and I don't think it's something they would admit. I'm sure they would admit it's not something that they want to have to do. It's just you kind of work with what you have at that point. But we'll see. I think my hope is that Outman will get opportunities early on to kind of prove that, maybe he can hit left-handers, and then that really solves one piece to the puzzle that I think needs to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Just looking through here, Swelling Sausage says, Outman is 25, right? Time to blank or get off the pot with him. I will say 25 for a guy in his standing is not very old. That's not you probably got a couple more years. This is a guy who is a fringe top 100 prospect. If he were 23, he'd be on the back half of the top 100 prospects. So I'm not quite sure that I agree with that. Jacob asks, at what point do they move away from CT3 though? I think not for a while, right? He's got a lot of money on his contract. They value the versatility. And if we're being honest, as bad as Taylor has been, Trace has been worse. And you could really make a case that it would make more sense to get rid of a guy like Jason Hayward before it would to even think about moving a guy like Chris Taylor, right?
Yes, unless you don't want to upset Freddie Freeman. I'm sure that could be weighing into things. But yeah, with Chris Taylor specifically, at least publicly, Dave Roberts has continued to say, he trusts him, he believes in him, he thinks, he's working hard to get back on course and all that. And I think that it is still there. I don't believe that Chris Taylor all of a sudden forgot to hit type thing.
Yeah.
I think injuries, I think he's admitted that his swing is kind of complex. And I think that's kind of the concerning part is if that is the case, then it takes, a lot of work for you to kind of get it going again. And so when will that happen? But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't foresee any sort of Chris Taylor trade anytime soon. I mean, at the earliest, maybe next year.
Yeah, I mean, look, if they could trade him, I think, and get something for him, I think they would. I think that's a scenario where you're packaging something with him. Let's move to the pitching side as we think about opening day roster. We are a week away as we record this. So again, thanks to those joining us live on YouTube and on Facebook. We appreciate you. We will be doing these live shows on Sunday nights at 9 p.m. right here on the Dodger Blue 1958 YouTube. So hopefully you could set aside some time to join us for that. You can also listen to this, as many of you probably are, as part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Search DodgerHeads. You can get it anywhere. You get Google, Apple, Spotify. Anywhere you get your podcast, we are available there as well. So we appreciate folks listening after the fact and joining us there as well. But let's talk pitchers. You and I talked a little bit about this on Sunday night. And just to recap, the Dodgers are going to be carrying 13 pitchers. The locks, we have our Kershaw, Urias, May, Syndergaard, Almonte, Phillips, and Vesia. Gratterall, I believe we both said is a lock. Caleb Ferguson, I believe we both said is, I guess we use different language, but we'll go lock on Ferguson. And Shelby Miller was the other guy that I think we both agree is basically a lock. That leaves you, let's see, 3 spots for a number 5 starter and then 2 more pitchers, however you want to shake out. Now, what's interesting as we update the conversation here is that both Ryan Pepio and Michael Grove have pitched one additional time since the last time we talked. Safe to say neither of those performances were what those guys were hoping for. In Pepio's case, he pitched yesterday, and as we record this, 4 2/3, 5 hits allowed, 3 earned runs, 6 strikeouts, and 2 walks. That was Pepio's line. Grove pitched today. I believe it was kind of one of those weird, he was in and then he was out and then he was back in. 4 1/3, 3 hits, 2 walks, 4 earned runs, and 3 strikeouts for Grove. So you've got Pepio, who gives up a couple more hits, but gets a lot more strikeouts. You've got Grove, who continues this weird trend of not allowing a ton of hits, but allowing a ton of runs. However, that seems to happen for him. So you and I both agreed at the time that we thought Pepio would have the upper hand for the number 5 starter. Both these guys get a performance. Pepio struggles. It felt like a chance for Grove to maybe, if he came out and gave you 4 or 5 scoreless innings, then maybe things change. But I'm imagining, since both guys had pretty much similar performances, you're still sticking with Pepio?
Yeah, I think he needed to fully collapse and Grove needed to be lights out for it to switch. I think, to Grove's credit, I think he made it a competition. Frankly, when Tony Gonsolin got hurt, if you had said going into spring training, hey, if the Dodgers if something happens in the rotation, they need a 5th starter to step up. Like, I think we probably would have maybe both assumed it would be Pepio.
Yeah.
Grove, I think, pitched his way into that conversation. And like I said, give him credit for that. But I was leaning Pepio, and I didn't see anything to that makes me believe that there'll be a change.
Now, both of these guys struggling. Does that open the door for a Gavin Stone to come in, or not enough stock in one spring training start to change your mind there?
No, not enough. And, we got some of those. I see comments in here, people saying Gavin Stone needs to be up instead. And we got some tweets about that. And again, like similar to the Bobby Miller conversation, I'm just going to push back. Like, the Dodgers aren't going to do something like that right now, because there is going to be an innings limit if and when Stone comes up, if and when Bobby Miller comes up. So the Dodgers aren't going to say, hey, forget Pepio, who has pitched well, forget Grove, who has pitched well. Let's just go to Gavin Stone because, maybe he has more upside right now. Like, that's not how they plan things. It's not how they operate. And so I just, Stone, I get it. He's a tantalizing option for fans, and I just don't see it happening now.
Yeah, no, I agree. We had somebody asking in the chat, what about Bobby Miller? They seem to hide him. I thought he would make a move this spring. We kind of got into the clubhouse when we were down in spring training, and I got a chance to chat with him, and he sort of indirectly told us what eventually came out, which was he's not pitching. They're slow playing it. He made clear that he was not injured, that wasn't the reason. Said he trusts the organization, but it seems like exactly like you said, if you're only going to get, say, 100 innings from Bobby Miller this year, maybe 120, why would you have him pitching in spring training? Like, let him use the first month of the minor league season to be a buildup so that the back half of the major league season, if you need him, he can maybe give you 50 or 60 innings should that arise. Now, Gavin Stone, a little bit older of a process, or excuse me, a little more developed, I should say. guy. So maybe they feel like they can get more innings out of Stone, which is why they're building him up for a normal workload this early on. But I wouldn't expect Bobby Miller up at the major league level before Gavin Stone. I mean, it seems pretty clear that Gavin Stone will probably be up in a month and a half, something along those lines. Bobby Miller closer to the All-Star break. Is that where you're at?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, honestly, I don't know if we see Bobby Miller in the first half of the season. And I know in the interview with you, he said he was healthy, but then shortly after that, he told Vassay that he did have, I think, shoulder soreness at the beginning of camp. So a little bit of semantics. Like when you're asking him the question at that point, I think he had fully recovered, but he didn't necessarily disclose, which he later did, that it seemed that he was dealing with some sort of issue early on.
Yeah.
And so I think that ended up being a factor into kind of their planning for his slower spring training. But yeah, I mean, with everything going on, injury or not, the way they built him up or didn't build him up through these Cactus League games, you're not going to see him for a while.
Yeah. Okay. So if Pepio is the number 5 starter, that means we've got 2 spots left for a whole host of guys. The first 2 options are Michael Grove and Andre Jackson, who could be sort of a number 6 starter, long man. Now, would they want either of those guys at the major league level, but not pitching consistently? Could be a factor here. You've got Phil Bickford, Justin Brule. He was just optioned, so we can cross him off our list. Victor Gonzalez, I believe, is still in major league camp. Is that right?
Yes.
And then Jimmy Nelson, who,
well, Dave said today, Jimmy Nelson and Daniel Hudson will be on the IL to begin the season.
Interesting.
Hudson was already obvious because he is dealing, like his knee is bothering him after pitching. He's not really bouncing back right away, recovering fast enough to go like back-to-back days. And Nelson, like you and I talked about, like they were going to find a reason to put him on the IL just because he hasn't pitched in a while and it's just not there right now.
It was that or retirement. So I'm glad he chose the Phantom IL stint. So my guy, Jake Reed, by the way, also got optioned. Too bad. Having a nice spring, but I'm sure we'll see him at some point. So it really comes down to you and I both agreed that we think Phil Bickford gets the last quote unquote full-time reliever spot just because he's out of options. He's had a pretty good spring. So we see that happening. I assume you haven't changed your mind on that front.
No, I think I think even if like he didn't pitch as well as he had, he's probably on there just because of the options.
So that leaves Michael Grove or Andre Jackson if they wanted to go the stretched out number 6 starter long reliever guy, or Victor Gonzalez is kind of the last man standing at the minor league level. I believe you had Andre Jackson when we talked on Sunday. I had Michael Grove when we talked on Sunday. Because you are now down 1 point to me in our roster predictions segment here, are you going to stick with Andre Jackson?
I am sticking with Andre Jackson. I still think he's a little bit more suited for kind of that relief role that, that they need right now.
Yeah.
I think with Grove, he'd be better off just making regular starts at Oklahoma City. And like I said on the last time we discussed this, Grove hasn't pitched a ton at OKC. He joined the Dodgers from Tulsa. He skipped a full level. So I think to let him make regular starts there will be good long term.
Yeah. Michael agrees with you. He said Andre Jackson's the best of everyone that's left. I can't decide with Grove. Andre Jackson is not starting A-level games the way that Michael Grove is. Michael Grove is pretty consistently starting these games. I don't know if that helps or hurts my case because on one hand, it tells me they probably think more of him as a starter and as a prospect than Andre Jackson, which is why he got to start the first game of the spring. Not that that matters, but just like from the beginning, he was a starter. And that means he's facing the best hitters on the other team in part. The second piece is, does that hurt his case because they're building him up to be a starter? He's in a starter's routine, whereas Andre Jackson, I believe all of his appearances have come out of the bullpen. And so I don't know if I'm reading too much or too little into that, but did that factor at all into your decision, how they've been using these guys throughout the spring?
Maybe subconsciously, but I think just kind of looking at how Andre Jackson was used last year, I think they're just more comfortable having him come out of the bullpen than they are with Grove. Yeah. So I guess the only way I would have maybe changed my thought process was if every game that Jackson pitched, he started. Yeah. But even honestly, if it had been like 50-50, I probably would still have guessed that they're just leaning towards having him as the reliever role, final spot in the bullpen type thing. And the starts were just more so that that doesn't fully become foreign to him.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I could just pick Andre Jackson here and clinch myself a victory, but that's just not the type of person I am. So we're going to stick with Michael Grove. I was just looking up Andre Jackson's numbers, and he has gotten stretched out a little bit. I guess, well, geez, his appearances are very strange. February 27th, 1 inning, March 5th, 2 innings, March 10th, 3 innings. So that's sort of your traditional buildup. He didn't pitch again for the Dodgers for 11 days until March 21st through 1 2/3. That was coincidentally his worst start of the spring. 2 runs, one of those earned, allowed, did have 3 strikeouts in an inning, 2/3. So kind of interesting. Again, you'd have to be like a mathematician doing the Pythagorean theory over here to try and make sense of what all these different appearances go. Ooh, Andre Jackson sat out 11 days in between. What does that mean? And, he's only come in relief, but he struggled and his innings went down, and who knows? I'm going with Michael Grove as my last spot. So we'll keep it there. We can get to a couple questions from folks in the chat. This one's going to be short. We'll probably just go for a few more minutes, but we did want to react to my guy, James Outman, getting the news that he's going to be at the major league level. If you haven't, by the way, read the story, we've got it up on DodgerBlue.com. I believe you'll have to search for it a little bit, but based on an interview we did with him during spring training, he told an awesome story about his pet rock that was given to him, which I imagine, Matt, will have to be traveling to Los Angeles with him. So you can also find it, I believe, the Dodger Blue Twitter account, Dodger Blue 1958 tweeted it out. I retweeted it as well, so you can check that out. Before we get to questions, Matt, any other spring training tidbits that's worth mentioning here?
No, I think we covered just about everything. I know the opening day starter, everybody's been waiting for that. MLB put a big hold on teams announcing their opening day starters. So it's all going to be unveiled, I think, simultaneously tomorrow morning. And the expectation is that it's going to be Julio Urias instead of Clayton Kershaw. And I know when you and I were talking about it, I thought maybe they would go Kershaw instead. But with the way it's kind of lined up, Kershaw is supposed to be starting the first game of the Exhibition Freeway Series on Sunday. And so that pretty much ruled him out for opening day. But nothing is official. It's very much still, wink, wink. Even when Kershaw was talking about it, he said, I'm happy for Julio to do it. And then he sort of caught himself and he said, well, if he is, going to be who starts it. So that will be coming out on Friday.
Syndergaard or May? Who do you think is going to get that number 3 spot?
Ooh, good question.
Has any sense of how they've shaken things out so far this spring? I mean, how they did it last week kind of doesn't necessarily matter because they could easily mix it up. But if you had to guess, Syndergaard or I would guess May.
I would guess May as well.
And then Syndergaard 4th, and then Pepio, or in our case, we're both guessing Pepio would be 5th. So There you go. All right, we did get a couple questions here. Michael asks, "Are we ever?" This is an ageism joke against Max Muncy, and I just want to apologize to people in advance. Are we ever going to get a long-term third baseman? What's wrong with Max Muncy? He's not 100 years old. The guy's got a few more years left, right, Matt?
I think so. That, and I'll add to it that he's already in the farm. Not the farm system. He's in the organization. His name is Miguel Vargas.
There you go. Yeah, could slide over there to third base as well. Okay, let's see what else we got. Jason asks, which of these has the shortest leash to begin the season? Outman, Taylor, Thompson, or Hayward? I already gave my answer. One of these guys might not have a leash in my my thing. I said Trace Thompson is the guy I think with the shortest leash. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I will agree with you among that group. Yeah.
I mean, and I guess you could make a case for Outman if Outman struggles a lot, like to get sent. He might get sent down. That he could be the first move, but
I wonder though, because then at that point you get into like, what kind of message is the front office sending of, hey, we believe in you to be up with us. And then, if you struggle for 2 weeks, okay, actually, no, we're sending you down because you're not ready yet. Like, I just worry, like, will they want to send that type of message? What will it do to the player? Not every player would respond. Like, I don't think they would necessarily break Outman, but I don't know if that's something the Dodgers would do.
Yeah. THP asks, how long of a leash does Syndergaard have? Was mostly 90 for his first inning, sat 90 after that. This has been a storyline. Dave Roberts made a point when we were down there to say, hey, his fastball velocity isn't the most important thing to me. He might change his tune if he sees 90 on the gun. I think this is a really concerning thing. And it's kind of an under the radar story that, unless you've been following the Dodgers closely, hasn't really been talked about a whole lot. But we're talking about Gavin Stone and Michael Grove and Ryan Pepio. Syndergaard's on a 1-year deal, hasn't looked great. So just, something to monitor. I would say he has a little bit of a leash. We could maybe get a phantom IL stint here in a couple of weeks if things start out poorly, but it's just something to monitor here.
Yeah, I think so. And, the velocity, I mean, when Syndergaard had his first kind of press conference, if you will, it was done over Zoom with media. He said, he believes that not only can he get back to 100, but even more. And so I thought, okay, great. Like he thought he found something in his training program, and that hasn't unfolded yet in spring. I mean, I guess spring training is more or less over. He should pitch, I think, one more time before the regular season. If he sits, around 93, 94 and is pitching well, which if you look at some of his, like he's had a weird spring, he's done well and then had like 1 or 2 innings sort of blow up on him. I think the Dodgers will take that. But, to your point, if he does struggle, I think either he'd go on the IL to kind of, buy some time, or I could see them maybe placing him in the bullpen.
Okay, last question, not on here. This is from @Jeff Spiegel on Twitter. With the new rules about bat boys and bat girls needing to run requisite speed to the plate and back, do you agree with Scott Gearman's assessment that of all of the DodgerBlue.com staff, that he is best equipped to be a successful bat boy with the new pitch clock rules?
I will give him that. I've discussed kind of my old man back a few times on this show, so I'm not going to say I'm going to beat Scott in any sort of race. I will lay claim, though, if there's any ever sort of basketball competition, that's where I'm firmly planting my flag in the ground there.
Gee, you and Mookie, huh? You've got extracurricular activities outside of baseball that you're worried about? There we go.
Definitely.
Well, hey, folks, we appreciate you joining us for this one. Again, it was fun to look ahead. It's crazy, Matt. We're 7 days away from opening day, and as we do this at 7:15, it is a night game. So be excited about that. I will make a couple just fun announcements for opening day. If you joined us at all last year, we did a few of these. There's a website called Playback. You can view it in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. I believe if they're listening to the podcast, the link is probably in there as well. But if you head over to getplayback.com/DodgerBlue1958 on opening day, we will be doing a live watch party. So all you've got to do is log in with your TV provider information. You'll be able to watch the game. It's a little 30-second maybe delay from live TV, but we all get to watch the exact same feed at the exact same speed. We'll have myself and some other folks from DodgerBlue.com in there. So that'll be a blast. If you missed those, they're a ton of fun. So make sure you join us for that. We're going to do that for opening day and on Friday night, the second game of the season as well. We'll have a live post game on maybe both of those. Stay tuned, Dodger Blue 1958. And of course, spread the word because we're going to have tons of content every single day. We've got new content coming, Dodger Blue 1958 on YouTube. So subscribe, ring the notification bell down below. Matt, anything else we need to promote before we head to opening day?
No, I think that covered it all. And I'll just add that, I'll be in the press box for opening day, so I won't spoil the playback chat for you guys. But I will hope to provide updates on if Caesar salad is back this season. I'm definitely looking forward to that. And actually, I tweeted out a thread of the new food, and I think we're going to be putting together an article, and we might even do a video for it. I'll be trying. There's some items I want to try.
Moreno's not allowed. You're not allowed on any food.
It's good.
You and Scott.
It's good.
We need to keep away from food takes. Blake's got his whole other brand of takes. It's just Daniel and I. Daniel and I are the only two guys that are just right down the middle on this place. So I will. You know what though? I do like food conversations with you. So I say you and I, let's book it next week. We'll do a video talking about all the new food at Dodger Stadium, or at least once you get a chance to sample what's going on at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah,
we'll chat about it. So thank you everyone for joining us. As always, you can check out Matt's stuff at mmoreno1015 on Twitter, as well as at DodgerBlue.com. We appreciate you joining us. Enjoy the rest of your night. 7 days until opening day. We'll see you soon. And as always, go Dodgers.